Howdy, y'all. Today we're going to talk about the Intro to Genetics. We're going to have a big emphasis on a lot of the key vocabulary that we want to know for this unit. And those key terms are all listed here. But the overall goal is just to take a closer look at heredity and genetics. So this is how scientists describe and study how certain traits are passed on from parents to offspring. So let's start with like an example problem. Let's say that I am a gardener and I have a stable population of purebred purple flowers and a stable population of purebred white flowers. My purple flowers are the darkest, purpliest purples you've ever seen, and my white flowers are just pristine and pure, and they're unlike anything else on the market. However, let's say I'm getting bored with my purple and white flowers, so I decide to cross them both and see what I get. So I take a purple flower and I take one of my white flowers. Again, these are purebreds, and I cross them, and I'm hoping for some sort of new, wild, crazy variation, and I end up with a purple flower that is identical to my original purple flower. And in fact, all of the flowers that I make from this cross are the exact same type of purple. So that's kind of frustrating because I wanted some differences and I just got more of the same, but whatever. I'll cut my losses. I'll just take my new purple flowers that I crossed and I'll cross them together, and I guess I can just go back to my regular old purple flowers. So I take my new purple flowers, the ones that I just made, cross them together, and I end up with both purple and white flowers together. So about 75%-ish end up being just as purple as the original purple flowers, and the other 25% are white. Now again, I start off with two purple flowers here, and I cross them together and I get a white one. So what the heck's going on? And this is the type of problem that Gregor Mendel, this Austrian monk back in the 1800s, he actually noticed this exact same thing. He was a monk, but he was also a gardener. He studied pea plants in his garden, and he's what's known as the father of genetics. And we call him that because even though he had no idea what was actually going on, he had no idea how any of this stuff actually worked, but he just noticed this exact same numerical data that I just showed you, right? He takes these two purebred flowers and we just get some unexpected results. And he cataloged all of this, and we're going to use a lot of these observations as the basis for understanding some of the basics of genetics. So let's start off though with what we know today. Okay, remember, Mendel didn't know any of this, but thankfully we know a little bit more than he did a couple hundred years later. So let's start off with genes. Okay? Now we know that in every single one of your cells, every single cell contains a nucleus, right? And inside that nucleus, we can actually find your chromosomes. We can see these under a microscope, and chromosomes happen to be these really tightly packaged bundles of DNA. Okay? So inside your nucleus, we've got these chromosomes made of DNA, and inside that DNA, right, on those segments of your DNA, certain segments code for specific proteins, and these segments we call genes. Okay, so a gene is just a segment of DNA that codes for a certain protein. And these segments of DNA, they're all found on our chromosomes. Humans have a total of 46 chromosomes. We have 46 because half of them, 23, came from mom, and the other half, the other 23, came from dad, right? So we often just kind of accept that we're like a blend of our parents, and that's pretty much true, right? We're half our mom, half our dad. Now, each chromosome, though, that we get from mom has a partner from dad, and we call that pair a homologous pair, a homologous set of chromosomes. Right? So again, you've got your nucleus, you've got your chromosomes. Inside that nucleus, you unwind your chromosomes, you get some DNA, you got segments of DNA we call genes, and we inherit this from our parents in the form of sperm cells and egg cells. So if we take, let's say, a normal male, okay, and we're going to look at all of their chromosomes together, all 46, you'll notice that we have 23 pairs here, and every single pair has double, they're basically like copies of each other. The only exception in this is sex chromosomes, which we can probably get to later. But for now, just recognize that every pair of chromosomes has its own homologous pair. Okay? And on these homologous chromosomes, we have certain genes, and they happen to be located in the same space. So I'm just going to use this as an example. This is just kind of simplifying this to make it a little easier. But let's say I've got a homologous pair here. And let's say over here I've got the homologous pair from dad, I've got the other one from mom. Okay, well, we inherit eye color, the genes for eye color, from both of our parents. Okay, and on this chromosome, that gene for eye color occurs on the same spot, whether it came from your mom or whether it came from dad. The same can be said of a different set of genes, right? Maybe the genes that determine whether or not you have freckles, or the genes that determine your. You'll notice that they occur at the same spots in the same on the same homologous pair, whether they came from your mom or whether they came from your dad. Now, we know that we have different variations, though, of those genes, right? When I go back here, we don't have one type of eye color. There's different types of eye color. One type of height, right? There's a variation of how tall you can be. Well, we call that variation the alleles. Okay, so genes can come in different variations called alleles. Some examples here, let's say we've got genes again for eye color, for freckles, height. Well, the alleles are the variants within those genes. So for eye color, you could have blue or brown eyes. For freckles, you either have them or don't. For height, you're tall or you're short, right? So we've got variations of the same genes. And these homologous pairs that we get from our parents, they might not give us the same alleles, right? So you might inherit the blue-eyed allele from your dad, but you inherit brown-eyed allele from your mom. Let's say you get two of the same pairs, though. Let's say both of your parents give you the alleles that don't for freckles, okay? Or they both give you the allele that code for tallness, right? So you can get a combination of two different alleles from your parents, or you can get two of the same. And this variation can be different, of course, from one person to the other, because you are receiving a combination of two alleles for the same gene, because you're receiving half of your chromosomes from mom, the other half from your dad. A little side note, you don't usually get the exact same half from your mom and your dad as like your siblings do, right? So your siblings have the same biological parents. Sometimes they have variations just among them. If we look in a little more science way, we can look at these two different types of terms to a genotype, what they have. Now, we could have two of these alleles. Sometimes these alleles are what we call dominant. These alleles are what we call recessive. But regardless of the terms, the alleles we call. And let's go back to our homologous form, and we got the blue color. Okay, notice how each of the letters are the dominant trait. It actually tells you which trait is going to in you, which trait you're going to physically express. You can get a combination of those alleles, recessive or recessive and recessive. If your is represented with a letters have different. Let's say you get two different ones. Let's say dominant allele and recessive allele. Well, because different alleles, we call hetero. Means sometimes we call these individuals for that trait. Other times you could get recessive alleles, right? Same recessive allele. Homo means same. So if you have the same homozygous recessive, then you're homozygous. But this individual you might also prefer purebred. It be said if you've got two dominant alleles, right? Then you're homozygous dominant for that trait. That's your genotype, and you would all purebred for that. So now that we have these traits in our genotypes, well, how does that actually affect what we see? Okay, so that's what we see, what we can physically express. That's called the phenotype. This is the trait that's expressed because of the genotype. So a phenotype for eye color feels like, well, you don't have, or a phenotype, you're all right. These are the representations of what you have. Physical traits are genetic traits, right? So your phenotype is determined by your genotype. Put it all together, right? Get cluttered. We'll just look at all the differences that we really want. Again, eye color is a gene or a trait. Okay, but not everybody has the same of color, right? Not everyone has the same allele. So examples would be blue or brown eyes. Notice that we've also designated which traits are going to be dominant in a second. Individual gets allele, and they've got two different their genotype, heterozygote, right? Okay, because they have two different ones. So what happens if you get two different alleles? Well, only one of them is going to show up. In this case, brown eyes shows up, even though this individual has an allele for they inherited blue-eyed trait from their father, but they're going to express the brown eyes from their mother. Because the brown eye allele is dominant over the other, it's always going to show up. Okay? We look at our other traits too, right? Freckles here. Let's say they've got two recessive alleles, like recessive, not going to have freckles. Let's say tall is dominant, short's recessive, but they have two dominant alleles. Again, because they're both dominant, they're definitely going to show that dominant trait.